Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by Greg Smith, CEO of Equinox Gold. They are the premier America's gold producer, currently 7 operating mines. That includes Brazil, Mexico, California, and soon to be in Canada, Ontario, their Greenstone Mine. They also have some other growth projects we'll talk about. Greg, welcome to Ron's Basement.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here.
Yeah, how's it going today?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Pretty good. So you became the CEO of Equinox in September, October of last year?
Yeah, September 1st effective.
And you'd spent a number of years prior to that with the company as the president, correct?
My role was, or my title was president, and my primary focus was on sort of M&A and growth and that type of thing.
Okay. So are you, do you feel like you're settling in after your first 6 months?
Yeah, I think finally now. It's taken some time. It was pretty busy out of the gate with travel and just getting to all the sites and a couple of conferences and that type of thing. But it started to hit a bit of a groove here, so it's good.
That's excellent. Now I have to be honest with my viewers. I don't know, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you did a couple interviews when you were still in the president capacity. And I identified you as someone who, wherever you went, my money would follow as an investor. So I am a stockholder in Equinox. Now, do you pronounce it Equinox or Equinox?
So I say Equinox. Lots
Okay.
of people say Equinox. It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Well, nonetheless, I'm going to call it Equinox out of respect for you today. So I was, as already being a shareholder, I was very happy when you were promoted to the CEO role. You know, one of the things that attracts me to the company is what I've heard in the past, that there's kind of an owner's mentality within the company, that the managers, the senior management have a lot of their own personal money invested in the company, believe in the company. Anything you'd like to say on that, in that regard?
Well, I think that's 100% true. I mean, between myself and Christian before me, certainly, and our CFO Pete and our COO Doug, and really all the management team are all shareholders, have all been, I would say, net buyers over this, the last 5 years as we've been growing this company. We implemented a share participation plan for our general employees, and we've got about 80% uptake on that, certainly in Vancouver. So a lot of our staff are also shareholders. And if you look at our sort of inside ownership, Ross Speedy, who's our chairman, he's our single largest individual shareholder. And that brings our sort of management board inside ownership to one of the highest sort of in the gold space, certainly in the intermediate space.
Sure. And one thing I like to point out, I'm an ex-accountant, is a lot of times it's more important to me not to hear that, let's say you, for instance, Greg Smith, owns 60% of Equinox. I'm sure you'd love to own 60% of Equinox. So would I. I'll settle for 6%. But nonetheless, I think what's more important and often overlooked is what percentage or how much of a CEO's or the senior management, how much of their own personal net worth do they have in the company? How much of their own skin do they feel like they have in the game? And it's, I think it's a good sign that to hear for investors that the senior management does have a lot of their own money in the game. So the company is growing towards this 1 million ounce annual production number. How's that coming along?
I think it's taken a little longer and been a little tougher than when we originally envisioned that as our goal. I always tell people that it's that 1 million ounces is sort of representative of a certain scale. Whether we're at 900 or 1.2 million, whatever it is, it's sort of representative of the scale that we've been working to achieve, and that's sort of our first stop on whatever Equinox can ultimately be. And so we've done that through, as you know, through acquisition and through development of projects along the way. So we've bought production and we've built production and we've sold some production. So it hasn't been linear, but the trend is in the right direction. And that's still a focus for us, is getting to that scale eventually. And as you mentioned before, we have our Greenstone Mine in Ontario coming online next year. And that's a big step again toward reaching that level of scale.
Yeah, that'll be one of the largest larger gold mines in Canada. Is that correct?
It'll be one of the largest open pit gold mines in Canada, certainly in the top 4 or 5. There's only a handful that are larger, and Cote is one of them. It's in construction now, so you've got sort of 2 of these mines that are going to round out that top 4 or 5. So yeah, it's a meaningful project, big project in Ontario, and obviously a big project for Equinox.
For the company, and we're anticipating low cost production, all-in sustaining cost.
Yeah, it's one of the highest grade open pit gold mines of scale in Canada as well. So we're going to benefit from that grade profile. It's a large mine, 30,000 or 27,000 tons per day, but 30,000 tons per day more or less, and production profile north of 400,000 ounces of gold on a 100% basis. So that does lend itself to economies of scale. And we should be, in the lower quartile of operating costs, certainly for open pit mines in Canada.
That's very exciting, and that'll be about a year from now, a little over a year.
About a year from now, we're going to be pretty excited because we'll have first gold pour sort of imminent, and really focusing on bringing the mine into commercial production at that stage. So it's all happening, very quickly now through the rest of 2023.
Yeah, I mean, a year flies by, so that'll be an exciting time. I imagine I know where you'll be when that first gold gets poured at Greenstone.
Oh, 100%. I want to be there. Yeah.
You'll be there. Hey, if we zoom out and look at the picture look at the company from a larger scale, when we look at Brazil, when I think about, in my mind, as I review my investments and my personal I'm kind of like the management at Equinox. I have a good portion of my net worth invested in Equinox. So I think about it on a regular basis. When I think about what's going on in Brazil, when I think about what's going on in Mexico with the company, and also in California, I see like an opportunity. It feels like to me over, let's say, the next 2 to 5 years in all the regions, not just Canada, but a big opportunity for growth. Is that a safe statement?
Well, if you know the company, we've got a fair bit of organic growth in the profile or in the portfolio already, right? We've got our Castle Mountain phase 2 in California. That's one we're really keen to get started on, and we're in that permitting process now. We've got the underground expansion at Aurizona in Brazil, so that's also another growth opportunity within one of our existing mines, and of course, Los Filos eventually needs to have a large plant, and that will also increase production of Los Filos. So within the company, we've got these growth opportunities. We've been a little less focused on M&A compared to how we had been in the past, acquiring other companies for growth. That's not to say we wouldn't do it if there was an opportunity that was, so compelling we were, sort of needed to look at it. But we want to get Greenstone across the line. We want to see some of that value creation at Greenstone accrete into our share price, put us back in a stronger position, and then we can start looking at growth through acquisition. But certainly in the existing portfolio, we've got plenty to do here over the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, it feels like I get the sense it's like heads down, focus, let's deliver on these opportunities we have within the company right now. And then I like what you said, right? When the share price is more reflective of the true value of the company, maybe that's a good time to look at further growth through acquisition.
No, and you're 100% right. I mean, if you back up 6 months, gold was $300 less. We were in the middle of this very large build. Inflation was running amok, and we're just like, listen, we've just got to put our heads down, focus on the task at hand. Get ourselves in a position of strength, and that's what we've been focused on the last 6 months, and just delivering on Greenstone. So you could have said it better. That's exactly the strategy we've been undertaking over the last, since I started in September.
Yeah, and we forgot to mention, we don't want to jinx anything, but we're very happy about the $1,970 gold price right now. That helps. It's certainly not a bad thing.
No, it's really helpful, and you never know what gold's going to do, so you got to enjoy it while it's here, but also protect that downside, and that's what we've been doing. Big picture, we're all gold bulls, or we wouldn't be in this industry. But how it is. And when you're in a capital intensive period, you've just got to be really focused on that, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because, and I've heard I was talking with Jorge Ganoza, the CEO of Fortuna last week. He said, we can only focus on what we can control. And that's what I heard you say as well. And I know that was whatever that November last year, October, when we had the $1,600 gold price. I mean, I'm a shareholder. I mean, but you just keep trudging ahead day by day, and eventually it all works out.
Well, we put a plan together and have been following the plan, and we've had some tailwinds with the gold price, which of course really helps the situation meaningfully. Yeah.
Before I forget, Dan Wilton, the CEO of First Mining Gold, a friend of mine, a sponsor of the channel. I'm also invested in that company. He came through St. Louis last year. I was having lunch with him, and I mentioned to him, I was talking about different companies I'm invested in. I mentioned you, and I guess there's a little history between you two. You've worked together at one point. He definitely told me to say hello to you.
Yeah, Dan, I've known Dan, I don't even know how many years, but it's been a long time. Back when he was an investment banker, he banked the company. I've dealt with him in that capacity, and then he was involved in a private equity firm that was sort of there at the beginning of one of the predecessor companies to Equinox, and he was very heavily involved, particularly at Arizona, and financing that, and sat on our board. And Dan's a great guy. I see him here and there in Vancouver, certainly, and always a good guy to catch up with.
Yeah, well, he and you are two of my favorites in the business. I want to shoot off on a little tangent because First Mining has two big development projects in Canada, Duparquet in Quebec, in Springpole, Ontario, and then you've got the big project in Ontario. Do you sense, and I'm hearing messages that Canada is becoming more of a favored jurisdiction recently for mining?
I mean, this is actually the first time I've worked in Canada specifically on a project. So what I can tell you from this experience is that it's been a fantastic place to work. I mean, it probably our experiences may not be like others, but we've just had a really great experience with Greenstone in terms of the people we've been able to attract, the local communities, the provincial government, federal government. I mean, it's been a fantastic situation, and Greenstone benefits pretty meaningfully from being on the Trans-Canada Highway. It's not a remote location. You can drive to it. It's accessible. It's one of these projects where it's not too challenging to get good people there because it's not in some far northern, very difficult to get to place. So our experience so far has been great, and can't wait to get the mine up and running. And I think Canada, after this experience, it's a place that I think we'd like to grow in. It has really been good for us so far.
Good. That's great. That is great to hear. I'm sure you get this question often. Ross Speedy, chairman, founder of the company, but you've been there from day one as well, correct? So you were part of that founding team. What's it like to work with Ross? There's another big shareholder who I'm friends with, Rick. He said, ask Greg how often he gets to talk to Ross. What's it like to work with Ross Speedy?
I mean, it's a lot of people ask me that, and it's been great. Ross is he's extremely accessible. So I talk to Ross frequently, whether it's by phone or by email. He travels a fair bit, but he'll answer the phone almost at any time, anywhere in the world, and very involved with the company. We have regular in-person meetings at the Equinox office, and Ross is heavily invested in the company. He's retired off the Pan Am board, and I think Equinox has become or benefited from an additional focus from Ross. So it's been good. Ross has been in this industry a lot longer than me. He's had some major successes. He's seen sort of everything, and having a guy like that on board is helpful, because when things get tough and you get stressed out, Ross is calm. He's been there before. He's seen this movie before. Right. And you're able to kind of talk things through in a pretty logical and reasonable way. So, from that perspective, it's great. Plus, Ross is an eternal optimist. And so, it's always bigger and better. And that's a great environment to be working in, certainly for me, and I think for everyone else at Equinox too.
Yeah, sounds like a great guy that you can go to with strategic questions, operational questions, somebody who could really help out. I can't help but mention this. It's something that's stuck in my mind because I'm a big Ross Speedy fan as well. Rick Rule said that it thinks very highly of Ross, and he always admired Ross's resourcefulness. He said something about in Ross's early days, they used to joke saying he walked around throwing around nickels like they were sewer lids. What did I miss? We're talking to an audience. I have about 17,000 diehard gold and silver fans. Besides Greenstone, anything else you're excited about throughout the rest of this year in regards to the company?
Well, Greenstone's the big one, and pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Next year as we bring it into construction, we're hoping to, sort of enhance that story of Greenstone. It's a large district. There's lots of exploration potential. There's ultimately underground potential there and other deposits. So that's going to become a big narrative in the company, I think, going forward. This year, we're very, like you said, heads down, focused on delivering on our guidance, delivering on our operations, generating that cash flow, making sure we're, fully financed, nice and comfortably right through the build. And so that, that again is another focus for us, just kind of, status quo at our operations. We will put out an updated feasibility study on the Aurizona underground and start moving toward what that looks like in terms of starting that development. And hopefully by the end of this year, we're in position to start doing that. That's a pretty exciting growth prospect at Aurizona. And generally speaking, I mean, gold, I'm not an economist, but it feels good for gold coming up.
Yeah.
And Equinox has a huge amount of torque to the gold price. It's not just our resource and resource base. We are a bit of a higher cost producer right now. And so our margin expands, incrementally more with the price of gold. And we also have been building using some leverage, right? And so when you're in that sort of highly levered situation in a rising gold price environment, you just have more torque to the gold price, more beta to the gold price. So I think, and you can you can look back at our share price. I mean, as gold was going down, we got hammered, and when gold has started ticking back up, we've sort of outperformed, and that's just the way our stock behaves. So I feel that if gold continues with a nice bid here and continue to go up, I think we're really gonna see that accrete into our share price as well, and hopefully, at a rate higher than many other gold companies. So I'm feeling really good about Equinox right now. We announced on I guess it was Monday, a gold prepay facility, which, gave us a substantial amount of liquidity. The forward curve on gold prices was very attractive, and we were able to get that money in at a very low cost of capital, especially when you look at the current gold price. So that really just takes the any questions around, near-term cash for financing Greenstone kind of out of the picture. And I think having that risk, or even perceived risk, reduced is also going to be very positive for the company as we move forward.
Yeah, I saw the news release, and that was going to be my next question. So thank you for addressing that. And I guess I did read that correctly. You were able to basically pre-sell a certain amount of gold. I think I saw somewhere somebody calculated it was maybe 18% roughly of the annual production of the mine once it's up and running. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not tied directly to Greenstone, right? It's an Equinox. It's an Equinox facility. So I think it's, over the term of the facility, it's like 5%, over the term of that facility. So it's not it's not a huge amount of our production, but the cash today, while we're in this sort of peak spend at Greenstone, especially early this year, it just gives us a level of buffer and comfort that's just extremely helpful. But yeah, I mean, the way that works is we pre-sold gold in the future using the forward curve prices, which on average was 2170, and then the discounted value of that is 140. But I think the cost of capital based on 2170 is around 8%. But if you ran it at 1900 or 2000, it's between 3 and 5% money, which is extremely low cost of capital, very efficient to put into place, and very flexible. We can accelerate gold deliveries under it, or we can roll them. You have a lot of flexibility around that product. So the main point, though, was we've had a lot of different levers we've been pulling to maintain our financing situation as we've built Greenstone. This one was a really attractive one that was proposed to us by one of the banks in our syndicate. And we just thought, well, this is a great product for us in this specific situation.
And non-dilutive to shareholders.
Yeah, not dilutive
Right.
at all. No.
we won't complain about that. Greg, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. Again, did I miss anything? Anything else you want to add with add for the viewers?
No, I think you covered it, Ron, and you could call me anytime. And if you want an update and you can share with your viewers, I'm happy to chat with you whenever it makes sense. All
right, that sounds great. Thank you, Greg. And if anybody wants to go to the website, is equinoxgold.com?
Equinoxgold.com. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I wish you continued success, and I'm going to look forward to talking to you again. Thanks, Greg.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Ron.